Welcome to the March 16th, 2021 regular meeting of the Gary Common Council. I want to continue to wish everyone a very happy and blessed and reflective Women's History Month. As is our custom, we'll begin with a word of prayer that will be led by our very own Councilman Ron Brewer.
Shall we pray? Father God, in the name of Jesus, we come today to say thank you. We thank you for all you have done, all you're going to do. Lord, on tonight, we assemble in this chambers and some at home. Some is even driving. We ask that you will protect, lead, and guide. Lord, we ask that you would give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to do the work of the people that we have been elected to do. We ask that you will bless this Gary Common Council. We ask that you will bless the administration. Bless the citizens of Gary. Right now, we give you honor and praise in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
And thank you, Councilman Brewer. This time we'll stand for those of us who are in the chamber for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Here.
Councilman Brewer.
Here.
Councilwoman Brown.
Present.
Councilman Brown.
Here.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Here.
Councilman Lay.
Present.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Present.
Councilman Williams.
Here.
And President Godwin.
Present.
Mr. President, there are 9 present, 0 absent.
With 9 members present, we have a quorum to conduct the business of the Gary Common Council. Council members, before you are the minutes of our March 2nd, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve said minutes?
So move, Mr. President.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Been seconded by Councilwoman Brown and moved by Councilman Brewer. Any question or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
And President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 9-0.
With a vote of 9-0, our March 2nd, 2021 meeting minutes are approved. Assignment of council pending ordinances and resolutions on first reading.
CPO 2021-14, an ordinance revising the Healthy Families Budget for the calendar year 2021, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2021-15, an ordinance revising the FEP grant budget for the fiscal year beginning January the 1st, 2020, ending June 30th, 2021, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2021-16, an ordinance for the City of Gary, Lake County, Indiana, authorizing additional appropriations for the Park and Recreation Fund, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, Acting City Controller.
Ways and Means.
CPO 2021-17, an ordinance granting a residency waiver for employment with the City of Gary, Indiana, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Personnel.
CPO 2021-18, an ordinance granting a residency waiver for employment with the City of Gary, Indiana, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Personnel.
CPO 2021-19, an ordinance establishing new fund for the Human Resources Department to use for the wellness credit received from AIM Medical Trust for the year 2021. Sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, City Controller.
Ways and Means.
CPO 2021-20, an ordinance authorizing a transfer of funds within Fund 101, Department 604, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2021-21, an ordinance approving increases and decreases in appropriations in Fund 213 Emergency Solutions Grant, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, acting City Controller.
Ways and Means.
CPO 2021-22, an ordinance approving a transfer of funds and adjusting appropriations in Fund 212 Home Program, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, acting City Controller.
Ways and Means.
CPR 2021-03, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Gary, Indiana, acknowledging Karen Freeman Wilson as the first African-American female mayor in the City of Gary and the state of Indiana for Black History Month. Sponsored by members of the Gary Common Council, William G. Godwin, 1st District, Cozy Weatherspoon, 2nd District, Mary Brown, 3rd District, Ty Atkins, 4th District, Linda Barnes Caldwell, 5th District, Dwight A. Williams, 6th District, Ronald G. Brewer, Councilman at Large, Michael Brown, Councilman at Large, and Corey Slade, Councilman at Large.
Parks, Recreation, and Culture.
Mr. President, is assignment of pending ordinances and resolutions.
Attorney Williams, I'd like to add an ordinance. I'm going to ask Councilwoman Atkins to do it. Is this the best time to go ahead and take a vote to add that to the agenda?
Yes.
All right, Councilwoman Atkins.
Mr. President, I'd like to know what you're adding.
We're about to do that.
Oh.
Councilwoman
Okay.
Atkins.
Attorney Williams, do I add by ordinance number or do I add by the ordinance, or do I add by, is there a problem, Attorney Lay?
Yes, we should be given the title before you add and ask for legal questions. He's responding where I don't understand what he's responding to. I have no problem with you adding. I'm simply asking for the information. And I apologize.
Yeah, can I ask a question first?
You can ask as many as you desire.
Thank
I
you.
asked one was not answered. That's the difference.
Okay, well, I don't know who you asked.
I asked Mr. Godwin, who's taking off his pen too. I noticed that after I voted for him. Yeah, so I expect him to answer. I'm sorry, I wasn't
I'm
expecting.
taking off my gloves too.
Oh yeah, that don't bother me.
All right. So basically, here's the deal. We are seeking to add the community benefits agreement ordinance that was passed in December of 2019. And there will be a series of amendments proposed thereto that reflect matters that are currently a case in controversy, I suppose, in litigation. And so the goal is to add the said ordinance and with proposed amendments, which will be detailed in the committee to which it is assigned.
So can I ask my question now?
Yes.
Thank you. So, Mr. President, my question is, do I state the ordinance number or do I state the CPO number?
The CPO number should suffice.
Okay. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to add CPO 2019-65 to the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have I guess the overview is simply what I just said, is that it is bringing to bear again an ordinance that is a controversial one because it's in litigation, and there will be amendments proposed to that ordinance. And I would just say specifically clarifying points of contention, and that's all I will say about that. That will be further elaborated on in the committee to which it is assigned. Any other questions or discussion?
Yes, sir, I have one, Mr. President, but I'll yield to whoever else
Right,
wants to say
Councilman
something.
Williams?
Okay, you said it's an ordinance that we had in the past.
Mr. President, point of order, we're having discussion on something that has not had a proper second to have discussion on.
Barnes Caldwell.
It's been properly second?
Yes.
It's been
Okay,
second.
okay, I'm sorry. Okay, please continue.
Can I get the ordinance, can I get the CPO number again for that?
CPO 2019-65,
No.
CPO
Mhm.
2019-65.
I'm finished.
Okay. Councilman Lay?
Mr. President, the court has jurisdiction of what's going on here. In other words, this is a court case. You're now making modifications that are not inside of the court. Those modifications or whatever should be argued in the court, not before the council.
Well, it won't be argued. We have the right to change any of our ordinances at any time.
No, not when it's under the jurisdiction of the court. In other words, this entire ordinance and what's going on there is in the court. Again, I don't have a problem with you doing it. I think you're just doing it incorrect. That's all.
Attorney Williams?
Yes, I regrettably disagree with Attorney Lay. I've also spoke with, I believe, Attorney Walker, who is the named attorney on the case. He had no objection. It's an attempt to make the case moot. If we can reach some agreement, there'll be no need to get in contracted litigation. So I don't see anything wrong with what we're attempting to do.
All right. Any other questions or discussions about adding the matter to the agenda? All right. Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
No,
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8 yes, 1 no.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. 8 votes in the affirmative. CPO 2019-65 is added to our agenda, and I guess you can read it now, Madam Clerk.
Okay, I have to find it because I was not aware that this was coming back.
You want to,
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair,
Councilman Williams?
yeah, this is dealing with the community benefit agreement.
Yes. All right. Clerk Reynolds?
CPO 2019-65, an ordinance establishing a community benefits agreement, and then sponsored by Council Member Rebecca White.
Planning and Development. All right. Councilwoman Brown. You're muted. You're muted. No
The
problem.
Finance Committee has before it CPO 2021-14. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilwoman Atkins, I think.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2021-14 for adding to the agenda. The Finance Committee has before it CPO 2021-15. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2021-15 for adding to reporting out. Do you want me to?
Yes.
Okay. The Finance Committee has before it CPO 2021-20. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2021-20 for reporting out to the council.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Councilwoman Atkins?
Mr. President, the Ways and Means Committee has before it CPO 2021-15. For the record, I approve this ordinance.
16.
16, sorry about that. 16, CPO 2021-16. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman
Yes.
Mike Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Yes.
Mr. President, the majority of the committee has approved this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Mr. President, the Ways and Means Committee also has before it CPO 2021-19. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilman Mike Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Yes.
Mr. President, the majority of the committee has approved this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Mr. President, the Ways and Means Committee has before it CPO 2021-21. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilman Mike Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Yes.
Mr. President, the majority of the committee has approved this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Mr. President, the Ways and Means Committee also has before it CPO 2021-22. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilman Mike Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Yes.
Mr. President, the majority of the committee has approved this ordinance for reporting out to the council.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. Our Personnel Committee Chair is Councilwoman Brown, and she has, starting with CPO 2021-17.
Pardon?
CPO for Personnel, 2021-17.
Mr. President, 17 is mine.
Yes, under
I'm
Personnel.
sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. For the record, I approve, for the record, the Personnel Committee approved CPO 2021-17 for the record.
Okay, you have Councilwoman Atkins.
Okay, Councilwoman Atkins
Yes.
and Councilwoman Caldwell. Do I have?
Brewer, Councilman
Oh,
Brewer.
Brewer.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Mr. President, majority of the Personnel Committee has approved CPO 2021-17 for reporting out to the council. The Personnel Committee has before it CPO 2021-18. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Atkins
Yes.
and Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Personnel Committee has approved CPO 2021-17 for reporting out to the council.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, Planning and Development has before it just one CPO 2019-65. That's only have one, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Planning and Development Committee has before it CPO 2019-65. I approve this to be reported out on first reading. Councilman Godwin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Planning and Development Committee has approved CPO 2019-65 to be reported out on first reading.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Councilwoman Atkins.
Mr. President, the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Committee has before it CPR 2021-03. For the record, I approve this resolution for reporting out to the council. Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilman Mike Brown.
Yes.
Mr. President, the majority of the committee has approved resolution CPR 2021-03 for reporting out to the council.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. Councilwoman Brown.
Mr. President, the Finance Committee would like to report out CPO 2021-14, 2021-15, CPO 2021-17, CPO 2021-18, and 2021-20.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Councilwoman Atkins.
Mr. President, the Ways and Means Committee would like to report out the following ordinances: 2021-16, 2021-19, 2021-21, 2021-22.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, the Planning and Development Committee has one ordinance we would like to report out tonight, CPO 2019-65.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Councilwoman Brown.
Mr. President, the Finance Committee has before it CPO 2021.
Yeah, you're
Personnel
17.
Committee, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Personnel Committee has before it CPO 2021-17 and CPO 2021-18.
Thank you. Councilwoman Atkins.
Mr. President, the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Committee would like to report out the following resolution, CPR 2021-03.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. This time we will begin our special and select. We are honored this evening, I'll just begin, to have the chief of our Gary Community School Corporation with us, as well as her chief academic officer, Kim Bradley. I want to be clear that, the school corporation does not report to us, and I hope that this is not a combative encounter. They are simply here to express what is happening within the schools and to give us insight to that regard. So I will just ask everyone to please remain collegial in our communications as possible. Dr. McNulty, and then along with, is it Dr. Bradley? Ms. Bradley, thank you. All right, you're muted, so just FYI. Dr. McNulty. And by the way, let me first say congratulations to the Westside Leadership Academy's high school boys basketball team. Councilwoman Atkins and I and others, I think Councilwoman Barnes-Caldwell as well, was at the sectional tournament, which they won, which was hosted here in Gary at Westside. And also Councilman Brewer and Atkins and Barnes-Caldwell and I were at the regional tournament Saturday night in Michigan City, and they knocked it out of the park. And so our boys 4A basketball team is headed, and I will be there. I got my tickets this weekend to play Carmel for the semi-state. I think I said that.
Semi-state, that's right.
Semi-state, which will be in Lafayette. So we're hoping to do some type of send-off that would be appropriate to honor these young men. We also did a pizza party, the Common Council did, for them last Thursday after their practice. And we'll be doing the same thing, as you'll hear later, for Thea Bowman. So I want to be clear, we're not playing favorites, but we're proud of both of our athletic teams who are succeeding so well and representing the city so well. Dr. McNulty.
Thank you. Well, you stole my thunder, but I can't say enough good things about our sports team, our sports program. Very, very proud of the young men that we have representing Westside right now. I want to say a big thank you again for providing the pizza party for the gentlemen last week. They very much appreciated it. But the team has worked very hard this year, not only to be good athletes, but to be good student athletes. I would like to brag that all of the students that we have on the team are on the honor roll. One of them's the valedictorian. They're doing phenomenal. We want to make sure that when they go to college, that not only can they go for their athletic ability, but they're also going for their academic ability. So we're very proud of the efforts that are being made there. We did implement study tables this year for the first time in a long time at the school district. And I think that's helped tremendously with keeping our students focused and engaged in a structured, positive activity. So with that being said, as you noted, we are going to place the semi-state in Lafayette. It's at 2:45 our time, 3:45 Lafayette time. We are taking a fan bus for our students so they can go down and participate and cheer their teammates on. We do have chaperones that are going to be accompanying the students. They're only selling 750 tickets per team for COVID regulations. So if anybody's interested, you have to go online and purchase a ticket, and they are going quickly. I did speak with the fire chief, Sean, and he has graciously agreed to provide the fire trucks and ambulances and so forth. And so we're going to send the kids off with a parade on Friday at noon through the city. So we're really excited about that. I think the boys are really proud. So I want to thank everybody, and it's a great thing that everybody's coming together to support our team. So thanks again. And there are shirts on sale at Westside if anybody wants a shirt that says we're going to semi-state and those types of things. They're at the main office. Okay, with that being said, I want to give a couple updates. Thanks for having me today so I can update you on what things are happening within the district. We did end the school year 2020 with just under a $6 million deficit, and we're currently on track as this year continues on to be a little under $3 million deficit in 2021. So we're making great progress with the fiscal management side of things. We are continuing to use those 1065 funds that were afforded to us for capital projects. And we do have bids that were accepted for HVAC at 5 of our buildings and roofing projects at 6 of our buildings. So those are underway and moving forward. You have noticed the painting if you've come to the gym for the games or have been walking through the schools at all. We've got lots of new painting that has been completed. The track has been completed except for the hot surface and the striping, which will be done in the next couple of weeks when the weather breaks. So our track will be ready to go for the spring sports as well. So we're excited about that. The big elephant in the room that I want to address is that the new allotment of money that has come from the government for federal funding that has been afforded not only to the city, but for the school districts. And so we were allotted approximately $95 million for COVID relief and CARES monies. And I do want to say several times out loud, as many times as I can, that money cannot be used to pay the debt down. Because I've been asked that several times already. Can we use that money to pay the debt so that we can get the school back to local control? Unfortunately, no. That money is only allotted for intervention, remediation efforts to address learning loss and to address PPE issues and to address issues within buildings that they might have for HVAC, air ventilation, that type of things. We don't have a plan yet for the money as we just received it here in the last couple of days. We are going to be putting together a robust committee that will be sitting down to talk about what we can do with those funds over the next couple of years, because we want to be very cautious that we're using every penny to go towards students and their growth. So we will have a committee, will involve community members as well and be as transparent as we can so that everybody knows where those funds are going towards. I also wanted to talk about our enrollment. We are up almost 80 students this school year, which is the first time that's happened in almost 10 years in the Gary Community School District. From our fall count, which is September 15th, to our February count, we gained about 75 students. So we're really excited about that, and we're hoping that trend continues for next school year. We've already started our enrollment campaign for next school year, reaching out to families and getting them committed to coming to our school for next year. We are addressing the learning loss that's happening across the nation because of the COVID pandemic and students being out on e-learning. So we have put together an extensive summer school opportunity for our students, which will be all day learning as opposed to a half a day, which is what a traditional summer school looks like. We're hoping that our students will come K through 12 for a STEM-based summer school program for 6 weeks. And then we'll have a second one for those high school students so that we can assist with credit recovery towards graduation. So we have those dates already solidified. Those are on our website, and we're reaching out to families to get them enlisted in our summer school. And then in addition, in the fall, right when school starts in August, we're adding an hour and a half to the school day so that when students end school, they'll be expected to stay for the next hour and a half. It's mandatory. And again, that's to address remediation and intervention. Again, K through 12. We're going to be really hitting the K through 3 literacy, doing lots of literacy boot camps, if you will, for our students, because our students need to be able to read and have a solid foundation. Because if you can't read in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, it's really hard to even be doing STEM-based activities if reading is the fundamental to everything. So we're going to be really pushing that, not only with our students, but holding workshops for parents or anybody else who might need it, so that they can assist with their children at home. And I did want to hit upon, I've been asked questions about the positions on the advisory board. And as to my understanding, the advisory board has 3 open positions that I was told of. And so those positions were interviewed for by the advisory board here in the last week or so. The advisory board did not come to a consensus on picking 3 new candidates. So they decided to keep those vacant at this time. We did have an advisory board meeting last week, which was a great meeting. And that's what they announced. And they've decided to keep them open until, I believe, until next year when the election happens in November. And then the 3 new people will take their seats in January. But at this time, I do have Kim Bradley, who's our Chief Academic Officer, joining me so she can speak a little bit more about the academic progress.
What I have primarily is that right now we are in the testing season. So we're in the middle of iRead 3, which is an assessment for our 3rd grade students. It assesses their ability to read. And those are the children in 3rd grade who will be targeting for those literacy boot camps. We want to make certain that by 3rd grade, all students attending our schools have a solid foundation of reading. I Learn testing, which is a state mandated test as well for 3rd through 8th grade students, begins on April 19th, and we're preparing for that. All students will need to come into our buildings for those testing, but we're setting up transportation and scheduling that. We'll let parents and everyone know when those are in place. Our formative assessment, which is our test that students take 3 times a year to gauge their improvement, we have seen some improvement in reading across every school in the district, and we're very happy about that as it relates to growth. And math, most of our schools have seen growth in math as well. I think all but maybe 2. We recently adopted a curriculum. So we had a curriculum committee of teachers, instructional coaches, and principals. We had different book companies come to us and present. We utilized a rubric that detailed important aspects of reading and learning to read, things like the fundamental reading ideals, and also making certain that we have books that are interesting to our students where they can see themselves in those pieces of literature. And as of today, we believe that we have a company that we will go with, K-12, and we're very happy about that. It's very interactive. It has online pieces, AP courses. We're very excited about what that brings for our students. And then the only other thing I had was summer school. Paige talked about it a little bit, the 2 sessions and the timeline for that. So that's the update from curriculum for me this evening.
Well, thank you, Dr. McNulty and Ms. Bradley. At this time, council members, questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. It's very helpful and good to hear good news. And if there's any way going forward where we can, of course, be supportive to succeeding with our local public school, we definitely want to be doing that. I do know that Dr. McNulty will be at our first district community meeting tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. I wanted her to come for a few reasons. Number one, the referendum is about to hit taxpayers, and I want them to know exactly what is happening within our school corporation and how things are progressing. And increasingly, as we go along, how dollars are being responsibly used so that our, number one, students can do well academically and in every other way. So thank you, Dr. McNulty.
Can I mention real quick, since you talked about the referendum, I forgot to mention that I know I had promised when we were going through the referendum that I would have a referendum ambassador committee, and I have done that. And so I want to make sure that once again, I advertise that because that was a promise that I made, and it's a promise I'm keeping. So we had over 70 applicants that applied to be on the referendum ambassador committee. I had originally said that we would choose about 20. And then as I received all the applications, I was very excited to see the interest. And so I decided to keep them all, because if 70 people want to be a part of it, then I want them to be a part of it as well. So we plan on meeting with all 70 of them in May to talk about kind of a budgeting 101 class, if you will, about school finance. And then in June, at the end of June, when we start receiving the money in, I'll meet with these people on the committee so we can talk about the monies that are being received in and how we're going to spend them and get suggestions and kind of come up with a priority list. And then their job is to kind of go out and help explain that to the community as we move forward. But we're really excited to be working with the 70 that are on the committee, and hopefully you'll be hearing from them in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. You all have a good evening, and see you in Lafayette on Saturday.
Yay, go Cougars.
And I also want to shout out our chief, Sean O'Donnell, who has already been working with Dr. McNulty, and he sent me a message, of course she already said it, that they are planning to do a send-off on Friday. So I don't know what those particular details are, but wherever I am, I will try to be somewhere in the path of that send-off. So thanks so much to our Chief O'Donnell.
We will put the route on our website, and I will text it to all of you.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Take care. Absolutely. Council members for special and select.
Mr. President, I have I assume I can speak now.
Yes, Councilman Lay.
All right. On CPO 2021-17 and 18, I promised myself I would never raise this again, but apparently I may be the only person that sees a problem here. Each one of these proposed ordinances is based on an individual. I believe if you send them through without the name being in the heading, I'm not accusing anyone. I'm sure the 8 of you are fully aware of this. It's very difficult for the clerk to look them up. Again, maybe it's never necessary to look up old ordinances or old resolutions. So I find that at fault. But again, I've raised it before. That seems to fall on deaf ears. Also, since the mayor does not seem to be giving the overview, we need whoever's going to give the overview, which seems to dance in between Attorney Poe and sometime maybe Mr. O'Donnell, but they should be here under 2021-17 and 21-18. Someone should be. We've been discussing it in committee and other places. I think this is the MS's. I believe it is. I'm not sure because they sort of tied my email into the city, and of course I don't have it. I don't have anything being supplied by the city. Don't have it and don't desire it. I pay for my own. So I'm assuming this, you would, that again, you shouldn't laugh. I just don't, I didn't get elected for benefits like that. I only want the salary now. You can't take that from me, and the insurance. So again, I'm sure it's going to fall on deaf ears, but again, I raised the same issue here. Since Mayor Prince is not doing it, someone else should be on here with him. So we at least have at least I would have a general idea. It may not be necessarily important to others, so I don't want to imply that. But it's important to me same way with the fire engine. I thought it was very helpful. I do not believe the mayor has a great deal of information on the fire engine, and Chief O'Donnell came on. So again, I apologize for raising it with the council because I had indicated back in 2020 I wouldn't do this again. So I do apologize for wasting your time with these.
Well, let me respond, and I actually don't think it's a waste of time, and I thank you for raising those prescient points. You know, one of the challenges that we do have, and I saw it before I came on the council just as a citizen and business owner, is that when we're looking for ordinances, it's incredibly difficult, even when you're talking about properties and zoning changes, et cetera. So I do think that we should, prior to passing these or at some point, add in those names, because in this case, it's very important, because it may be that it's not we don't know. It could be a year waiver or a 6-month waiver, and we would need to be able to go back and easily find these. So I fully support that, and let's make sure that happens, and I'll rely on the clerk to help us make sure that happens. I will also say that I agree with your point related to the overviews. The sponsor of the ordinance or the sponsor's designee, which usually may be the department head, should be present to give the overview and to be prepared to ask questions. Now, I will say that I did have some concerns during some of these committee meetings that we had last week, where there was no one present but Attorney Pohl, especially in our personnel committee meeting. Maybe it wasn't, I think it was last week before last, but we were having these conversations and asking questions, and the right personnel were not there. And I know there's questions even when you get down to departments about, was the grant a year grant? Was it a multi-year grant? And so it's just so important that the responsible people, whether it's the supervisor, but certainly the sponsor of the ordinance or their designee, should be present. And we need to continue to push that. So,
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay.
I'm sorry. I think also there should be some responsibility for us to ask specifically for people too.
Right.
I think that will help if we believe it's a human resource question, then whoever's over the committee should in fact invite that person specifically, not by subject matter. And that way we won't be surprised when they do not come. I did check back, and the person said, well, I didn't. At least one said, only with one said, I wasn't aware that I was required to be there because no one asked me specifically. That may be their excuse. So in the future, if we ask for them, then we know that they were aware of the meeting and that they should attend the meeting.
I agree. Go ahead.
Well,
Councilwoman Brown.
They're both in the personnel committee, so I will ask my assistant to make sure that they are in attendance.
That's important. Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. And I will just say, I think that what we tended to do is to rely on the people who sponsored the ordinance to track where their ordinance is being sent and to ensure that the proper personnel are present, right? So none of us are sponsoring these ordinances. So we would rely on the chief of staff or whoever representing the mayor to ensure that department heads know where they should be. So that's, those are their direct reports. But in any event, I think we can do a both and approach to ensure that our committee meetings are actually useful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so thank you, Councilman Lay. I think Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, and to the same line what Councilman Lay said, talking about the headies and things of that nature. If you look at CPO, for example, CPO 2021-14, it has the controller Arlene Colvin as the controller, but as you look down to CPO 2021-16, he has her as the acting controller. I didn't know if that made a big difference, but it's throughout, it goes back and forward throughout some of these ordinances. So I think that should be kind of cleared up which one is going to be.
Correct. So I will ask the Corporation Counsel's Office who drafts these to ensure that we are consistent with the way in which we format these ordinances. Is Attorney Pohl, you're on?
I'm here.
Thank you. So did you get that in terms of the consistency of language?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Duly noted.
Thank you very much. All right. Other members for special and select?
Mr. President,
All right.
I'll defer.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell and then Councilwoman Atkins.
Thank you. Boards and commissions has several vacancies. We have openings in the following departments. Fire Civil Service Commission, we have one Democrat position. Redevelopment Commission, we have 2 vacancies. Transportation Board, we have 1 Republican. And the South Shore Convention Visitors Authority, we have 1 vacancy. If you're interested in any of these, please send your letter of interest along with your resume to lcaldwell@gary.gov or the Gary Common Council, 401 Broadway, Suite 209, Gary, Indiana, 46402. Attention Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell, Chair of Boards and Commissions. The deadline for these, Friday, March the 26th at 5 p.m. Also, the 5th District has a community forum scheduled for Thursday, April the 1st at 5:30 via Zoom. Our special guests will be members of Northwest Indiana Community Action and the Continuum of Care Network of Northwest Indiana. Members of these organizations will be available to share their services, what they offer to the public. All are welcome. You can call the council office for the meeting ID and passcode, or you can dial in. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of announcements. First, I wanted to let the public know that we are in the open application season for the Gary Police Department. So they are currently accepting applications. The deadline to submit your application is March the 26th. You can pick up your application Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5 p.m. at the Public Safety Facility Security Desk. Or if you do want to receive it electronically, you could email the Police Commission Administrator Secretary Angie Brown. Her email address is abrown@gary.gov. Again, if you do wait until the last minute to submit it, you will have to make sure that you submit it on Friday, March the 26th. And the public safety building is 555 Polk Street. I wouldn't be a true Cougar if I didn't also extend my congratulations to my West Side Cougar family. We are so proud of you. We're looking forward to supporting you as we continue down the road to state. So there are 2 more to go. And as Dr. McNulty as well as President Godwin expressed, we are looking for the city to come out and show out and support the Cougars. I don't think it was mentioned in terms of how you can obtain the link to purchase tickets, but we do have our social media page, the Gary Common Council, as well as the Gary Community School Corporation, and then they also have an additional page for athletics. So the link to purchase is on all of those pages, so you can access that. And again, you do have to purchase the tickets in advance for this game. I also wanted to extend our sentiments to the Thea Bowman Eagles. They did finish their season strong as well this past Saturday. They did lose the regionals. However, they finished strong as the 2A sectional championship winners. So we are looking forward to celebrating with them this upcoming Thursday at 6 p.m. at Thea Bowman High School. This upcoming Friday, there will be a virtual HBCU career fair sponsored by Colts Inc., an additional nonprofit organization. To access that information, they have an Eventbrite page. It is hbcufair.eventbrite.com. And just to clarify, Eventbrite is spelled E-V-E-N-T. It's B-R-I-T-E. Some of the colleges that will be in attendance is Tennessee State University, Kentucky State, Morgan State, Alcorn State, and of course, Central State University. If you want any additional information, you should contact Ms. Katisha Tony at Coates, COATES.inc2020@gmail.com. Again, it is virtual, so you have to RSVP and receive the link. The time will be Friday from 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. And if you missed that, feel free to give the Common Council a call, contact my administrative assistant, Ms. Karen Lane, and she can get this information to you. Her number is 219-881-1315. Lastly, but definitely not least, we are still rolling with the Gary Youth Council, so we are happy to announce the selections for our inaugural class. The following students have been selected to participate. From 21st Century, we have Summer Patterson, Kara Shockwell, Layla Sanders. From Still City Academy, Kendall Morris, Jade Bailey. From Westside Leadership Academy, Quincy Williams. And from Lighthouse Prep, Edgar Martinez and Donna McNeil. So our first session will be next Thursday, March the 25th. Congratulations, students. We are excited to work with you. We have an exciting program and curriculum that we'll be presenting to you going forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. Other members for special and select?
Mr. President.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I want to take the time also and offer congratulations to Westside High School's boys basketball team. I myself am a graduate, a proud graduate of Gary Westside High School as well. Having attended back in the very early days, I believe my class was the second class to attend the school after its opening. One thing about Westside High School, you know, we've always been winners. We were winners going back to 1969, 72, you name it. Not just in basketball, but in the academics, in the arts, ROTC, music. Westside has always been winners. The one thing that Westside did not have in comparison to Gary Roosevelt, we simply did not have tradition. But I tell you, after 50-something years of winning, with the efforts of our Councilwoman, Ms. Ty Atkins, and others, we do have that tradition now. So congratulations.
Thank you, Councilman Weatherspoon. Other members for special and select?
Yeah.
Councilman Williams.
I'd like to make two quick announcements to the residents of the 6th District. The first one is Thursday, March 18th, we'll have our 6th District Community Forum. It's by Zoom. The meeting ID and the passcode contained in the council chambers. Sherry Smith, legislative aide. The meeting starts at 6 p.m. We will have a member from the Gary Police Department. We will have Rachel Caesar from the General Services. We will have our own code enforcement officer, Brandon Hickle. He will be there. And I believe Cedric Kirkendall will be there as well for demolition coordination. Also, the second announcement is, excuse me, on Good Friday, April 2nd, we will have a 6th District Easter egg giveaway. So we will be at 3 locations, the Gary Fire Station located on 49th in Pennsylvania, Calumet Township Trustees, and Glenn Theater. Those 3 locations will start between 10 to 12. So the fire station's at 10 o'clock. Calumet Township will be at 11 o'clock. We're talking about the location is off of 41st Avenue. And the Glenn Theater, which is also on Ridge Road, that'll be at noon. After that, there'll be a motor brigade of about 12 vehicles. We're gonna go through the neighborhoods and give out some eggs and candy to the kids. And that's Friday, April 2nd. Good Friday.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Williams. Other members for special and select?
Mr. President.
I'll let Councilwoman Brown go and then Councilman Lay.
I just wanted to say
You're muted.
that I'm sorry, even though I did not go to West Side, all my nieces and nephews went to West Side. And last Saturday, I wasn't able to be there because we had an occasion in the family that we had to deal with, so we couldn't be there. But everybody, it was paws up. I'm like, okay, okay. So my congratulations to the West Side Cougars as well. And they're in my district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Councilman Lay.
Well, I guess they're in my district too, because I'm over the city, but let me up everyone here. I was at Westside September the 3rd, 1968. I was sent there pretty much by the Mayor Gary. It opened that day. Quinn Smith was the principal. He was the original principal at Westside, so I was there. And certainly, no, I went to Frable as opposed to sometime I referred to as directional school. And I say that in just simply just to certainly I'm proud of any school in Gary. I do disagree with something earlier that this ordinance that we put back on the agenda. Of course, I voted no. I've probably represented, I don't know, 21 agencies since I've been, probably more than that, just about everyone. And I've never seen negotiations take place in the public. In other words, a board or even this council should give its attorney the authority to negotiate. That's one of the times, as I understand the open door law, which is limited, of course, that you can, in fact, have a private meeting. Even when you go into mediation, you go there and you negotiate. So somehow it's going to be negotiated with the council. It would seem to me that the leadership of the council, that may be the president, the vice president, and anyone else you would choose, as long as you didn't reach a quorum, you would meet with your attorney, and it would be done that way. This seems to be more PR and political than trying to resolve it. And to say that the other attorney agree, I'm not sure the value of that. But why wouldn't that be discussed privately? In other words, if you're trying to impress maybe the first district or the CBA or someone that you're doing something, I can't understand. If you want to resolve a lawsuit, now again, I've only been doing it a very short length of time. I'm not going to bother to mention how long. I've never seen it done. So it would seem to me, you simply, the two attorneys can negotiate the differences, assuming that, and then what you do, once there is an agreement, then that agreement is taken to the court. Now, I believe you could even hold a closed door meeting once, the attorneys came back with an agreement. I think that could be done. But no, I'm serious. It seems to me, and we do a lot of PR, we seem to be preoccupied with being reelected too much. And I'm not blaming any one person now. Everything seems to be based on that, as opposed to doing the work, for this city. And I've been elected in districts, and I never thought of myself as being a district representative, but this council seems to refer, and certainly Councilwoman Brown is an absolute friend. She just referred us in her district. It's in the city. So, and again, Mary, I'm not picking at you. I'm just simply, no. Renza say I attack, and certainly I don't attack people I have deep feelings for, and you're one of those people. The other ones, others I may not have a feeling for. That we seem to relate stuff back to districts, and I don't know. I'm not going to argue if that's now going to be the system, that when we're in lawsuits, we will come back and do it in the public. I'm not sure why that's done. I would
let me just say, I don't want to interrupt you. Finish?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So let me just say a few things. Number one, everything I do is surely not about re-election, because I wouldn't have voted to support the referendum. So that's not my goal. I have a great career. So if that was in relation to me, that's certainly
no. The one you hit. If you throw a rock, the one you hit. No, I said it was not. In other words,
I just wanted to be clear, because I did help make the motion.
The mere fact that people attack me, Mr. President, in other words, on all sides, not only this council, who I represent, who I may decide to, the only time we really had a serious argument, you called me one time early in the morning, and I told you don't do that, about what some person who I don't know said. So again, each time that I say something, Mr. Williams say I attack. I wasn't attacking. I'm just simply saying that sometimes we have to think of it as the city as a whole, as opposed to districts. That was my point. No, it was not aimed at you.
Okay, well, let me just finish my statement.
But let me say this, and then I'll shut up. Two people for sure, three would tell you, if I meant to say it, I would say it. That would be Brewer and Brown, Mary Brown, and Renzi. If I intended to say something, I don't bite my tongue, I say it. How you receive it is your problem. If I offend you by accident, I will apologize. If I did it intentionally, you have no apology coming. So I would have said it. I would have said the first district if I was talking about you. I wasn't. I was talking about the council.
Well, thank you. Let me just reply. The first district was mentioned as it relates to impressing people in the first district, and we can run the tape on that as it relates to the CBA. But in any event, I don't care, because I have a great career. But let me say this, the folks who are part of the community benefits organization are a cross-section of this city. They live all over this city. And so it's an ordinance of this city. It was not brought to this body for an amendment without consultation and agreement, without a quorum, and with our attorney. And so it was not some willy-nilly PR stunt. I think the lawsuit was a PR stunt, if we want to talk about PR stunts. That was totally unnecessary. But in any event, I'll give Attorney Williams a chance to respond.
Yes, I deemed this necessary to turn the camera on. First of all, Mr. Chair, I want to correct a statement, and if I misspoke earlier, I surely did intend to. I don't recall saying that Attorney Walker was in agreement. I simply said he was aware that I would bring this to the council. So I don't want that to be my representation. Second, while it was actually me who brought this to the council president and asked that it be brought to the council, and not the other way around, and I take no issue with that. I don't believe what we're doing is illegal or in violation of any court rule. It's an attempt to mediate, which the court will require us to do anyway. Now, the fact that it's done in the public, I do take heed to that. I mean, there was some conversation actually with the council president of doing this by way of executive session, but ultimately to amend it, we would have to do it in a public meeting. So we chose to do the most expeditious way. But I just want to clear up the fact with Attorney Walker. He did not say that he agreed. He simply was aware that I intended to take this route and to bring this to the council.
Mr. President, usually I misunderstand people on this council and the attorney when they speak. I thought I heard that he had no problem. I put the term out with us doing it this way, but that's immaterial. In other words, why wouldn't you go into a private discussion? I understand you have to amend ordinances in the public, but you can't amend without agreement unless there has been an agreement. Let's say the word "a" is in the other party. We're not the party to the lawsuit. I certainly didn't think it was necessary to bring it at that point that it was brought. I do know when the council was talking about hiring somebody, you were violating several statutes, as I interpret these statutes. So that's what I was getting at. Why wouldn't it be done outside of the public view? That's why if you're trying to sell it, and without whoever the attorney is or the plaintiff, in this case, is on the other side, it can't be settled independent of them unless they've given you instructions. Remove the A and I will agree. So to go back and say I removed the A, I would assume Attorney Williams said another thing. He said the issue would become moot. You would then have to return to the court. You wouldn't think of a settlement as being moot. A settlement would be dismissal. And it could be, of course, done with prejudice or without prejudice. So he said it's moot. That means you're going back to the court with something and say, well, that's no longer an issue. Even without agreement of the other side, it can become moot.
Okay.
That was my only point. And again, forgive me, because I understand it don't count, but I just thought it was just odd and that it was going to be done this way. So in the future, I would assume we would be consistent in lawsuits. They will come back, we will amend ordinances, and we'll do it in the public. And that way, for some reason, maybe the whole council is involved initially, and I would think they would not be initially. But again, please forgive me wasting the council's time, and I sincerely mean that too.
Thank you. Other members for special and select? You're muted. Councilman Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. President. On March 10th at approximately 6 p.m., we held a public safety meeting via Zoom, and we talked about the vehicles, and a number of individuals was outlined to be there via notice that was published, emails were sent out, and those individuals did not choose to show up. A lot of things was brought out during that meeting as far as the state QPA, the pricing that we would have gotten with the state QPA and compared to what we paid for them now. The vehicles, the lettering, the radios, the different type of radios that was brought, a lot of different things was brought out. Without having the proper reputation from the administration there, I stated at that meeting there that I would not have any more public safety meetings there, that I will move to execute and basically make a motion that we execute the investigation committee. There seems to be a serious problem that we are having with the purchase of equipment, and specifically at this time, the purchase of police vehicles and the other vehicle that was purchased for general service department. So at this time, I will make a motion that we execute the investigation committee at this time.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Is there a second?
I'm going to second it, but I do have a question. Yeah, I will second it.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded, I think by council members Lay and Brown, Mary Brown,
Barnes Caldwell.
and Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. So 3 seconds. We'll have any questions or discussion?
My question, and again, I'm going to vote for it. It's the process I'm not really clear on. Why wouldn't, I didn't know Councilman Brewer was the head of the investigative committee. Why wouldn't that come from, are you on the committee?
Yes, sir, I am on the committee. And
Oh, you're on the committee.
Okay. I'm no longer going to continue to have these hearings in public safety, but I am the chair. And by
No, I'm going to vote for it. I don't have a problem with you bringing it up. So I wasn't sure who was on the committee and who was chair of the committee. That's all. Let me ask one other question. Once you activate, will this be the committee itself, or will this now be something we do with the entire council? I'm for the committee doing it personally, so along with Attorney Williams. Is that the way this is going to be done?
Mr. Chair, I'll refer to Attorney Williams, then I'll comment.
I'm sorry.
I'll refer to Attorney Williams, then I'll comment.
Well, the proper way would be for it to be handled by the investigative committee. But as in any committees, any member of the council is available to attend, but it should be led by the investigative committee.
That I'm getting at answering the questions, asking questions, things of that nature. That's what I was getting at.
It should be done by the investigative committee.
Right. That's it, Mr. Brewer. And as I indicated, I will be to activate the committee.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll.
And before we do that, along with Councilman Lay's point, it will be done with the investigation committee and along with the president of council who sits on all committees. So
Yes,
I want to make sure that's clear for the public knowledge. It does not preclude any council member from asking questions, but the committee will take charge of those. So if any questions any council member would like to have, please just refer those to the committee members, and we will make sure those questions are asked in the investigation.
See, that's, Mr. President, that's what I was getting at. Even if the council had questions, and again, I know you can do it 18,000 ways, why wouldn't these questions be passed on to who's ever asking the questions? You know, as opposed to everyone.
Well, sorry, I will say that my preference is I'm Democratic when it comes to these things. I think the investigation committee will organize it. They will schedule it. They will set the terms of engagement. They will send out the letters to all the invited parties and the materials and information that's being requested. I certainly intend to be part of it. If the chair of that committee wants to designate any particular council members to ask questions or give that opportunity.
No, I think you missed my point. You've totally missed my point. Totally missed it. We're not even, you're talking about chickens and I'm not even talking.
Well, here's the deal. I don't know if we want to spend a lot of time on this, but from my standpoint, as president of the council, any member of this council that would like to ask a question is free to do so. Okay. Is there any other questions related to that?
Well, same way I suggested you use a court reporter. I think if you're going to do things and you don't do it in an orderly manner, it will be, well, go ahead. You think for me to suggest a process is undiplomatic? It's not. It's not.
Well, I just disagree with the process. But I do agree that we should have a stenographer there, and I also agree. my position is that every council person will have the right and privilege and opportunity to ask whatever questions related to the subject matter of the investigation, and it will be led by the investigation committee.
I just thought it would, Mr. President, then I'll be quiet. I was suggesting they could ask the question, but just for orderly, it would come to, let's say you were the person asking the questions. Then the question would be passed to you. Then you would ask the question, that's all. In other words, if I have a question, I will pass it to you. You ask that question. The question is being asked. I'm not sure it's important beyond the committee who asked the question, but maybe it is. That's the process. I wasn't trying to restrict anyone from asking questions, just how they would do it. But normally, if you watch a committee, even the congressional committees, you will find that everyone, from other places from Congress can't just arbitrarily ask questions. That's all. They ask it of the chair. But I understand we've spent too much time.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Lay. Any other members for special? We need to take the vote. Any other questions or discussion?
Well, Mr. President, let me just say that for the process, that the letters will go out, or the invitation to individual that to participate will still go out the same way, pretty much via email, posting on the board, and if not, a telephone call. That will be the first initial request to get you to come to the meetings. After that, if you do fail to comply with that, then we will move forward to move to the subpoena of individuals to attend the meeting. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Seeing no other questions or discussion, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 9-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a vote of 9-0, the investigation committee is open. The information that is being requested and the people will be forthcoming. People invited will be forthcoming.
The last minor point, I didn't want to interrupt again. They should all be sworn to. Swear all your witnesses. Again, I know you.
I agree.
I know you, but you don't have to. I know you can come on and say, well, you don't have to swear anybody. That's true. That's true too. Because I would assume this deposition or whatever we're doing would go to the court if it was that issue. That's what I was trying to get at. But yeah, if you're going, I think you should swear them. You've agreed. So I assume the committee will now swear the witnesses.
I agree. Okay. Well, we were still on special and select. Were there other members for special and select? Let me say, I brought it up earlier, but on March 17th, which is tomorrow, we will have our first district community meeting at 6:30 p.m. It will be via Zoom. Dr. Paige McNulty of the Gary Community School Corporation will be there to present on the status of the school corporation and answer questions. Also, the Code Enforcement Department, Ms. Millie Glenn, as well as our Code Enforcement Officer, Robert Brinston, will be there to talk about code enforcement, how the process works, and to hear residents' concerns. 219-881-1315 if you would like the Zoom information. For all of our meetings, it's important that the public knows, for those who are on Facebook, if you follow Gary Common Council, if you like that page, you will get the alerts and you will see many of the announcements that we send out for all of our various community, committee, as well as council meetings. Just lastly, I wanted to say that the casino, it looks like it's going to be open, the Hard Rock Casino in mid-May. We had a great tour there yesterday, and we are excited about that facility. We know this has been many years in the making, moving from water-based to land-based casino, and it is a beautiful facility. It's going to be a great asset for our community. So we're all very excited about the prospects for jobs and vendors. You know, they had a great event at the Art House for prospective vendors. And so we want to continue to follow that and to ensure it's a great success, because as we know, and a non-insignificant portion of our operations comes from the success, the financial success of the casino. Any other question, any other special and select? All right, seeing and hearing none. Council pending ordinances and resolutions on third and or final reading.
CPO 2021-03, an ordinance establishing 2021 appropriations for the Police Department revenue budgets. Fund 227 for the fiscal year beginning January the 1st, 2021, ending December 31st, 2021. Sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Coleman, Chief of Staff, City Controller.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Atkins,
I move for passage of ordinance CPO 2021-03 on third final.
Second.
it's been moved by Councilwoman Atkins and seconded by Councilwoman Burns Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time.
Mr. President, I
Yes.
apologize for not turning on my camera. I'm having technical difficulties.
Okay,
I'm afraid if I keep fidgeting with it, I'll be knocked out completely.
we don't want that to happen.
Okay. CPO 2021-03 is an ordinance that establishes appropriations for the police department's revenue fund that receives dollars for law enforcement training and police academy services. And Chief Brian Evans is on at the meeting tonight and can answer specific questions if you have about the ordinance.
Chief Evans?
And we had 7 other departments send would-be supervisors to the class. They also paid a fee, which lowered our costs. So this fund is used for training purposes mostly and reimbursements. I hope I made sense there.
Any questions for Attorney Colvin or Chief Evans? Right. Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Gowan.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 9-0.
For the vote of 9-0, CPO 2021-03 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2021-04, an ordinance appropriating funds for the Commission of Women from EFSP FEMA for the fiscal year beginning January the 1st, 2021, ending December 31st, 2021. Sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Coleman, Chief of Staff, City Controller.
Councilwoman Atkins?
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2021-04 on third and final.
Second.
Been moved by Councilwoman Atkins and seconded by Councilwoman Mary Brown. Overview at this time.
Mr. President, this ordinance is an allocation from the county to the Commission for Women in the amount of $1,300 for shelter operations. This particular ordinance will allow the shelter to be able to purchase materials that they will need in order to accommodate shelter residents and to also assist in anything that they might need with regard to equipping the shelter itself. I'm requesting that this particular ordinance be approved by the council.
Thank you, Attorney Colvin. Any questions or discussion?
You did 5 and 6 yesterday.
Hearing and seeing no questions or requests to discuss. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Gowan.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 9-0.
The vote of 9-0, CPO 2021-04 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2021-05, an ordinance granting a residency waiver for employment with the City of Gary, Indiana, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Councilwoman Brown,
President, excuse me, Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2021-05 on third and final reading.
Second.
been moved by Councilwoman Brown and seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time. Is this being provided by Attorney Pohl or
Yes.
Ms. Lewis or Attorney Pohl?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry. I'm sorry. Which one was this? I got pulled in out of the meeting for a second.
05.
05. Hold on one second. Okay, so this is our request for a waiver, residency waiver. This first one is for 05 is Miss Annette Kolovos. As with the other, as with all residency waivers, there's essentially 5 criteria that are in the ordinance. We believe that Ms. Kolovos meets all 5 that are applicable. In this situation, the 5 criteria are whether the position was posted and advertised on the city's website and any other outlets, whether the position was posted and advertised for at least 30 days prior to the request for the residency waiver. The third one is whether there was a community outreach program. The fourth one was pre-employment testing data. And the fifth one was the availability of a non-resident who possesses unique and valuable skills to the office. Ms. Kolovos holds a position of confidence as a assistant to the mayor. We're asking for a residency waiver for Ms. Kolovos, excuse me, as a hire based on both her quality of, her quality of customer service. Basically, she rises to the level that is expected of Mayor Prince. Mayor Prince has a long-standing relationship with Ms. Kolovos as she worked with him while he was the assessor for the county. In addition to that, Ms. Kolovos is the only fluent Spanish speaker in City Hall, something we desperately need, given the fact that we do have a population that we serve, that we obviously must have somebody on staff, it's definitely something that we need to have in order to best represent the city of Gary as the welcoming city that it is. And so given those circumstances, we're asking for the council to grant Ms. Kolovos a residency waiver.
Questions and discussion, and I'll start if I may. You said that she meets, and I'll probably ask this on all of them, that she meets all 5 of these criteria. Can you specifically speak to 3, 4, 3, and 4? So
the way that I'd stated was that are applicable. With number 3, during the COVID pandemic, we were not able to hold any community outreach programs.
Question, when was she hired?
She was hired, I actually don't have that information in front of me.
Ms. Lewis is on from HR. Do you know when she was hired?
I believe it was 1/2/20.
So January 2nd, 2020. We did not shut down, as it were, until around March 16th of 2020. So was there any community outreach between January 2nd and March 16th of 2020?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Next question. Pre-employment testing data. What would that involve? You said all 5 that were applicable.
Yeah,
Is that applicable or non-applicable?
Well, the position, there wouldn't be a pre-testing data. would apply if there were, for example, when, there are, when an individual is hired for police, fire, EMT, things of that nature, they're required to either have a certification or a test. Being a confidential employment assistant for, an elected office or a department head, there's not a specific test. Ultimately, the determination for that comes down to a person that you obviously trust, the person that you have a longstanding relationship with. Given that the importance of the position, you want to ensure that you're working with somebody who you would trust your life with. It's not a position where you typically would just hire somebody just at random. It's definitely somebody that you bring to the table, as all mayors and all mayors and elected officials have, somebody that and that you've built a long-standing relationship with.
Thank you. And so I think, as I said in the committee meeting, confidential employee is nowhere in our ordinance. And so while I understand that people bring their, friends and former colleagues, and I totally understand that actually, it's irrelevant as it relates to our ordinance. It does not speak to confidential employees. But I will turn back to my question around number 3, start date January 2nd, March 16th, COVID. So number 1 says whether the position was posted and advertised on the city's website and or other outlets. Did that or did that not happen? Ms. Lewis or Mr. Cole?
I don't believe it did, and that would go against, I think, what is normally the process for hiring a mayor's assistant.
Okay.
The mayor obviously comes into the position with the need for an assistant on day 1. So
right. So it's not about what's normal, it's about what's in the ordinance. We can talk about changing the ordinance, but that's what's in the ordinance. Number 2, whether the position was posted and advertised for at least 30 days prior to the request for a residency waiver. Did that happen or did it not?
That did not.
Okay, so you said that all these applicable criteria were met. It seems to me that the only one that is relevant is number 5, availability of a non-resident who possesses unique and valuable skills to the office, requesting the residency waiver. I didn't do so well in Spanish, and I did okay enough in college, but I understand the importance of having bilingual speakers in our multicultural population. But I will say this, the problem is that you probably trying to prove too much. By going down your line of confidential employee, fact is that she's not working in the mayor's office currently, she's working in the zoning department. And so how are you reconciling the fact that that position is not being filled? It was not advertised for a zoning department employee, but you're saying it was meant to be a mayor's assistant, which is why 1, 2, 3 of these criteria are irrelevant in your mind and not applicable.
No, she's under the mayor's budget. She's the mayor's assistant.
But where is she working?
She works both with the mayor, and then also she assists with a one-man shop over in the zoning department while we were.
So she works at both. So where is she physically located?
I believe she'll be physically located in both. She works.
Wow, that's impressive. So she can't be physically located in both departments. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt on that. Let's just say we discussed it in committee that she's based in the zoning department. So let's not try to act otherwise.
Well, again, she's under the budget of the mayor's office. She can stay with the mayor's office, and this is a position where the mayor would decide, if this is a confidential position. Again, she's temporarily just helping out. It's not
the question is straightforward. Where does she work? Where does she spend? Office. She works in the mayor's office.
That's correct.
Earlier you said she works in the zoning department.
I'd stated she's helping with the zoning department.
Mr. Berea is on the line. Mr. Berea. Mr. Berea? You're muted.
Yes, I just unmuted myself.
Okay, quick question for you. There are 40 hours in the work week. How many of those hours does the individual spend with your department?
She's actually split between zoning, planning, and the mayor's office.
Okay, so how many hours is she in zoning and planning?
So she spends approximately just over a third in zoning, a third in the mayor's office, and a third doing work for the planning director.
Okay, Attorney Conmon, just one second. Attorney Colvin, you're on. Have been chief of staff at least for most of 2020. In the last 60 days, would you say, when he says she spends 1/3 of her time in the mayor's office, what does that mean? Is she physically located in the mayor's office?
She has been located in the mayor's office. She's also done work related to the mayor's office in other locations.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Mr.
Any other
President,
questions, Councilman Lay?
yes, when you do what you're doing, and again, I'm sure I will be told that I'm incorrect again, you're acting as if this is a committee meeting. Those questions certainly should have been asked in the committee. I certainly believe you have a right to go first, but I think as a matter of courtesy, the council itself should be allowed. Again, because you are president, and I certainly voted for you if you use that procedure. But in the past, not this council, and probably not the one the previous several years, we don't conduct committee meetings at this meeting, or it would be extremely long. But here's where I am. It goes back to the same problem that's over in 17. In other words, and again, it just to me, the name of who we're granting or requesting a waiver, because I see all three people as being different. Again, I see, and I'm going to use her first name, not out of disrespect, so don't nobody go tell her that. I just don't do that well in saying her last name. She's a confidential employee. I don't understand why we go all over. I understand it may be missing from the ordinance, but it simply may be a courtesy granted to any executive, or certainly whether you're in the school system, whether the mayor. In other words, he knows her. So what he being Mayor Prince is asking, for a waiver for a confidential employee. How he deploys this person, to me, it's almost a non-issue unless that person raises, say, well, he's sending me out to count the fish in the ocean or something as punishment. So he hired her on January the 2nd. I don't think he had, Mr. Boer wasn't available, as far as I can tell. He wasn't available on January the 2nd. So it's a confidential employee. I agree with you. I don't know why you go all over the place when that's what you're saying. It's a confidential employee. If the mayor decides to put her in X and she does not complain and it's not meant to harass her or punishment in any way, I don't have a problem with that. Again, I think the name should be in the ordinance, because if we grant the waiver, we're going to probably grant it based on some time. I would assume if she's replaced, that the next person may not be a confidential employee, and so that waiver that we're granting her would not be available to the next person, whatever the title was, whether they were over in zoning, planning, wherever they were. So I would suggest to the administration, let's put, although the council really is not taking issue with it, I'm only one person, but I would suggest you should put names in the heading. So we not only can the clerk find it, we know very specifically who we're granting a waiver for. And Mr. Poe, you never told us a time. You couldn't be asking for a waiver for the rest of her life, I don't guess. Maybe you are. How long are you asking for?
So the statute does not provide for a time. It just states that there's a residency waiver. The statute does not state, there's 1 year waivers, half year waivers, or anything. So ultimately it's just that we're following the statute and just asking for a residency waiver.
Well, that's the same thing President is saying. He's saying confidential employee is not there. I'm not interested in what's missing. I can read what's missing. What is it that will all three always be the same? The 7, 8, I'm sorry, Um, uh, 5, 6, and 7 be the same? I mean, you're going to ask for the same amount of time for all of them?
That's correct.
Is that right? Same amount?
Yeah, that's correct. We did not distinguish a specific time. We did not discuss that, and we did not propose that.
Well, and I apologize, Mr. President. I know we haven't these other one is based on confidentiality. The other one is based upon the unavailability of a person to do the job. Mr. Boer, I understand they couldn't find anyone with his skills within the city of Gary to do the job. He certainly was outside, so I don't take issue with that. The third one is a lady that was here.
Mr. President, we're commingling these. We're not doing them all together. We're doing them one by one, so we can get one out the way. Let's move to the next one.
I'll yield to Mr. Brewer.
Yes.
I think he was just making that point.
That's okay.
All right. I will quickly say that I think it's very clear that even when it comes to special and select, I have always waited until the end. And this is probably maybe second time where I've asked the first question. So I apologize if anybody was offended by my asking the first question.
No, again, no. See, I'm not
you
offended.
Stated, but I don't want to waste the public's time.
Well, no, but I'm not offended by anything other than the phone call. So I don't care what you're saying, dude. Don't just call me in the morning.
All right, let's move forward. The public we're trying to do work here. Is there any other questions or discussion as it relates to this particular ordinance from other council members who haven't had a chance to speak? Okay, if there's no other questions or discussion related.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Brown.
Yeah, so here's my question. I'm gonna agree with Councilman Lay about not having their name, because to my knowledge, I did sit on some of these committee hearings and it was very specific about who was where. The other part of it is that I'm concerned that even though according to Attorney Poe, there's not a limit on the requirement as far as a year, 6 months, something like that. I think if we don't have a cleaner ordinance, then you just open up Pandora's box. So I think we probably need to make absolutely sure our ordinance is correct, because I hear someone say 6 months, I hear someone say a year, then I hear Attorney Poe say, well, it's just a blanket one. I don't see any names attached to each one of these ordinances. So, and I know when I was in the committees, I saw this. And I know a lot of questions were asked then. That's why I didn't expect a lot of questions tonight. And I would appreciate some kind of response. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Brown. And I agree. I don't think that these should just be indefinite. I think they should be time sensitive, if you will. And so we need to do an amendment to these ordinances to add the name of the employee to the title of the ordinance. And if it's the pleasure of the council or the mover, to also add a time limitation, whether that's 6 months or 1 year. Probably 1 year would be the most useful in terms of efficiency. And an individual would always know, because at the end of the day, the ordinance is what it is. It is our desire for employees of the city to live in the city who are not otherwise exempted by state statute. So if there's a motion, I know that I'm not picking on her, but Councilwoman Barnes-Caldwell, you had mentioned in the committee, I believe, wanting to have a time limitation on it. Is that something you want to do, Councilwoman Barnes-Caldwell?
It sounds good, but we could send it back to committee for further discussion.
Okay.
Mr. President, I got a question on the motion. When we talk about putting a time restriction there, what is the purpose of the time restriction being put in place?
The goal,
Mr. President.
Go Councilman Brown.
I would assume that the time restriction is based on giving them amount of time to move into the city where we live at. And if not, I believe in committee hearing, it was brought up that if we gave them a year, they'd have to come back before the council in order to, to let us know what the status is, because based on, and I don't like to get into what happened in committee, but there were some concerns that were brought to us about why a person wasn't living here. So we said, okay, perhaps we need to give them time. So that's from what I could tell, that's what I saw.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Brewer.
and what I heard in committee, no one is in the process of being able to move back to the city or willing to move back to the city.
Willing to is the most important part, not willing to move. So
Yeah, willing to move, yes.
6 months, if you can't move within 6 months.
But what I'm saying is on the motion that you want to put, it was stated in the committee, no one is willing to move back to the city.
Well, that would be their problem, right? So if it's the pleasure of this council that the ordinance as amended would require them to move to the city of Gary in which they're employed, if they haven't done that, the waiver would have expired. And absent this council extending an additional waiver for 6 months per year, their employee would be terminated.
Mr. President,
If the ordinance means anything.
So, well, it means a lot. I mean, Mr. President, do I have the okay?
Yes, Councilman Brewer.
So are we talking about one individual or this is compliant to everyone? Because there were certain ones that had issues. I'm looking at Mr. Boyer. He spoke about, well, yeah, I'm doing what I told Mr. Lake.
Right. So okay, we will take these. I told you you'll get accused of commingling.
Right.
yeah, I wasn't allowed to do that.
No, you're right.
So but I stopped him. So
yes,
what we'll say is this. I think we can do these one by one. I believe Councilman Barnes Caldwell, were you making a motion to amend CPO 2021-05?
Yes.
Okay, and your amendment is that it will be time restricted for how long?
For 6 months.
Okay, time restricted for 6 months. And might I request that you also add that the employee's name be placed in the headline or the title of the ordinance? Is that okay for your total amendment? Okay.
Right.
So that's an amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Brown and Councilman Williams. I think we know what the overview of that amendment is, what I just said. Are there any questions or discussion?
Mr. President.
Councilman Lay.
Now, I was of the opinion, and apparently, as usual, I'm wrong. I was of the opinion, we're talking about Annette, she's a confidential employee. That's why I thought the times would be different. One of the things that I recall from the committee was that she was underwater on the mortgage. Yeah. Her ability to do certain things.
Councilman,
I think that's inappropriate.
That's not inappropriate. It's already been discussed in a public meeting.
Yeah.
Looks
like
she said it.
Please, you're out of order. Attorney Colvin, trying to speak. Attorney Colvin.
What I was going to say is that these issues that involve individual, one of the reasons why personnel hearings are confidential or held in executive session is because this kind of information is not generally heard in public. I know it's already been done, but I just like to remind you guys of that.
Mr. President, if I thought that was discussed in a public meeting, in a committee.
It may have been, Councilman, but what I'm suggesting is that it probably should not have been.
If it was in an executive session, then I certainly agree. But again, each person, although we're dealing with 5, I don't know the young lady, have no intent of embarrassing her, but her ability to move was restricted. Let me put it that way. I assume I can say that. She's a confidential employee. So in terms of her, I would be willing to give her forever. In other words, she's coming in uniquely, that we either granting her the rights. Now, again, I know we don't want to commingle, but as we proceeded through these, different reasons were given. And certainly 6 months is an extremely short time period. I would think a person would be given a waiver, let's say for a year. They then would return to the council and explain why they cannot comply with this ordinance. If the rationale for non-compliance does not make sense, then they are terminated. If we again hear it and it makes sense to us or we agree to it, why would we do anything other than to extend it again? It's going to be that way for a couple of people, or you may be getting rid of people with certain skills that are not here within the city of Gary. And I'm not talking about being bilingual either in terms of this young lady. It's probably a lot of people that are bilingual. I'm not one of those people. But again, she's confidential. That relationship with the mayor, to me, never changes. It never changes. We certainly could impress upon her the importance of moving in. I don't have a problem with that, but I would be granting her. That's why I was very specific that, and when I asked Attorney Poe, they're not all the same to me. They're different. But again, I'm not allowed to commingle. I understand that. That's why I was suggesting there should be a difference. And again, if I have exposed something that, as I told you before, if I tend to do something that I didn't intend to offend, I will apologize. I just simply, for some reason, thought it was an open meeting. Apparently, it was not an open meeting. We have so many sometimes I confuse.
Mr.
You
Chair.
should allow me.
Okay, all right, we gotta do some time management here, but
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Brown and Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The main reason why I brought this up is because not to amend the ordinances this time or pass anything, I really believe it needs to go back to committee because as Attorney Cole said, some of this stuff should not be, the public shouldn't have to hear it or see it. And in my opinion, it should have been an HR issue to start with, not, even though we have an ordinance. There is a chain of command, and I think, we have to be very careful as a council. That's why I'm waiting, I understand until now, about how we do it. Let me give you an example. As a county elected official, I have the right to get a chief deputy and administrative assistant and bring them in with me. That's just a given. And the mayors in the city should have those same rights. The residency issue, I brought that up because there were some issues about everyday worker in another department, whether or not they lived here and all this other stuff. Again, I want to get into it. That's why I stay general about it. But I must say that we can't just continue to change things as we go along. We really need to have some structure about how we put these ordinances in place. We need to speak to our attorney, and we really need to be very careful about how we bring people individually before the council to ask these sensitive questions that, in my opinion, should be an HR issue. It's okay to bring the HR person or chief of staff, deputy mayor, but in my honest opinion, I think the person themselves should answer those questions to them. The ordinance for us should be handled with those department heads and say to this department head, well, this person didn't meet that criteria or whatever, and then let the HR person deal with it. But the person individually should not be coming before the council. I believe there's a chain of command. I think they should work within that chain of command and that structure. If we're going to put the ordinance in place, it's fine for them to abide by the ordinance. If they have some issues, they should maybe want to submit something to us in writing or something like that. But I am concerned about the way we're going about this. And so I thought I'd voice my opinion because I've said in committee, I've said here tonight, and like I said, I mentioned the 6 months in the year, not for us to make an amendment right on the fly. I mentioned it because it came up in the committee, meaning as a council, we probably need to clean a lot of this stuff up before we just keep, voting on these things, because these are people's lives. Just like, and don't get me wrong, people voted for us to look out for their best interests by what we do. But it's also very important what we do it and how we do it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Brown, Councilman Williams.
Councilwoman, are you going first? Or?
Go ahead.
I'll be very quick. I just want to know, have we taken into effect that we're still in the COVID and that moving process is something that someone may not be willing to do just because it's COVID right now?
Well, I will say this, not because I do it, but there's a lot of movement going on and a whole lot of movement going on into this city and all over the country. So I don't think it was taken into consideration, but there's certainly a whole lot of moving happening.
I feel we should take that into consideration. And I understand that there's a lot of movement going on, but those are all, again, that's subjective. That's an individual's choice. I think we should take that in consideration.
Mhm.
We are still in COVID.
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer?
I would agree with Councilman Williams if that was the case, but as we did the interviews with all of the petitioners that were brought before, COVID was not an issue. There was other issues that everyone had and administration had with certain ones that they did look and they couldn't find certain ones. So I don't want to go into any names, anything.
But we are in COVID now.
Yes, we are in COVID, but what I'm saying is that was not an issue for any of the petitioners that's coming before us. It wasn't a COVID issue why they could not move into the city. They had other issues outside of COVID. They come, all these employees that we talk about now come to work every day. It's not a COVID issue. No one's sick or anything why they can't come to work. All of them come to work every day. No one expressed that they had a COVID issue why they could not. There was other issues why they was not able to move into the city, which was outlined in the committee. I do want to interject something. I keep hearing a terminology used as confidential employee. Inside of our budget, and I want us to stick to what we have in writing, we don't have anything such thing as a confidential employee. This is an employee that works inside the mayor's office. So we're throwing a title out there that's really not real. This is what the mayor calls this person, but that's not what's inside of our budget. So we technically cannot refer to that person as a confidential employee because we don't have anything that exists inside the budget as anyone being a confidential employee. Thank you, Mr. President.
If I could answer this.
Wait. Let me just quickly say, I agree with Councilman Brewer. And I think you might even have equal protection issues when you start creating these types of employees that are not based in our ordinance or in anywhere that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm the President of the United States, right? Have folks that don't have to be approved by Congress and so forth, but that's not the case here. But Councilwoman Brown?
Mr. President, I agree with Councilman Mike Brown because always, as far as I've known, any employment issues were confidential. They were not brought before the council. They were confidential. And so this is new. We've not done this publicly before. So I mean, I just wanted to agree with Councilman Brown that there are some things that should not be brought before the council. Some things should be confidential.
I agree.
And as it relates to human resources, some things should not be brought before this body.
And Mr. President, may I make one more point?
Yes, Attorney Colvin.
We have been talking about whether or not there were confidential employees. Yes, there are confidential employees. That's not a term that's specifically being used by the city of Gary. That's a federal law.
Right.
Some positions are protected, and there is a specific definition of who falls into that category. So yes, there are.
Attorney Colvin, can I ask a question?
Mr. Chair.
Just real quick, I'm trying to follow some, if I may. Attorney Colvin, what is that federal statute? Can you give me that statute? And is it?
I don't have it before me, but I can certainly give you the citations.
Yes, and it's not referenced in this ordinance. I think that's the
No,
problem.
it's not. It's not.
Right, so and I don't think it's. So I don't know. I'm just saying that I don't see confidential employee.
It's not in the ordinance.
Is it in any ordinance of the city?
But it's a body of law that deals
Sure,
with
absolutely.
employees.
Yes, right.
Mr. President, if I may as well, that is actually the term that's also used in the union contract. So in the Ask Me contract, there are certain individuals that are exempt from being included in the Ask Me, employment group or the membership group. Confidential employee defined as specifically those individuals that are identified as assistants to either elected officials or department heads are listed as confidential employees. That's where the term came from. We didn't make it up. And just to be clear, that's the reason why that term is being used, because that specifically describes Ms. Colavos's position.
Right, but I think your problem is that it's not in the ordinance. So if you want to propose an amendment to the ordinance where there will be an exemption for confidential employees, and the ordinance has a definition section that defines who would be considered a confidential employee, then that would solve your problem if the pleasure of this council is to vote in that way. But we're talking about possibilities, not what exists.
And
great idea.
Great idea. Outline either also.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay.
there is no, and we've argued this, there is no law that's all inclusive. In other words, as you move toward law, that's why we constantly are amending laws. I agree with Brown and Brown. Again, I believe a person at a certain level should be allowed, independent of what is contained in this ordinance. But by the way, in 2013, I won a lawsuit against the city of Gary because they said there was no confidential employee in terms of the police commission. We went all the way up, and they attempted to go one party to the state Supreme Court. Of course, certiorari was not granted. I won. I prevailed on a confidential employee. That confidential employee exists in the police commission in spite of the fact when they signed in HR, they did not sign in as a confidential employee. The commission decided they were confidential. That did not hold true for the fire department. So in spite of the fact it was missing, a court decided there was a confidential employee. We won.
Can I ask a question?
Go
Would you
ahead.
say that all appointed department heads would be confidential employees?
No.
Okay, so who would be the confidential employee?
Well, in this case, it was determined by a court. The city disagreed. They sent what they call their A-team of lawyers. I didn't think they were A-team, but Mr. Renser thought they were. And I told him at the very beginning that they would lose the case, which they did. In other words, in human resource, they did not show up as confidential. So the city argued they were not. But over in the police commission, they said they hired him as a confidential employee. That's what the mayor's doing. He's hiring a confidential employee. So you're saying, well, it's not in this ordinance. I agree. It's a lot of things missing from this ordinance. Even after we amend the ordinance, something's going to come up that's not in the ordinance. So I agree with Mr. Brown. We just shouldn't start amending. The mere fact the term is not there, the mayor hired a person. He hired a person and seemed to deploy him all over, but he hired this person, or at least when it's told, it's a confidential employee. The mere fact is missing. But again, I guess people see things different.
So I guess my question is, how do we determine, in terms of the civil city, who is a confidential employee? Is it whoever?
Mr. Chair.
Attorney Williams?
Customarily, a confidential employee has been the department head or the elected official's administrative assistant. That's the way it's spelled out. Attorney Calais is correct. Under 5881, there was a difference in the language between 5881 and 5882 between the police and the fire, which led to his success in the police commission case, whereas the fire commission was not successful, but the commissions took separate positions. The fire commission has since reversed itself, and they are now fighting for their administrative to also be declared in a protected class. So that has customarily been the definition, the administrative assistant of the department head or the elected official.
Okay.
Also, if indeed it's not the intent of the body to move forward today, I would agree with Attorney Colvin that the next discussion on this should be held by way of an executive session, because there are some legal issues that I have that I am not comfortable speaking about, having heard the conversations today, if it is the intent of the council not to move today. Thank you.
And I agree that they should be held in executive session. I mean, I think it's brought before us because the residency ordinance itself requires that the council make a decision. And obviously we can't make decisions outside of a council meeting. It's just simply for individuals' privacy that we shouldn't go into great details about their personal circumstances. And it is for Attorney Pohl or for the HR director to make general statements about, questions or applicability of the requirements of the residency ordinance. But in any case, we do have a motion that's on the table to amend CPO 2021-05 by time limiting it to 6 months and adding the employee's name to the title of the ordinance. It was moved and seconded. I don't think if there's any more questions or discussion on this particular ordinance, I think we should take a vote on the amendment, or the movers can decide to withdraw their motion. That's
Mr.
their pleasure.
President, I move to withdraw this motion and to send it back to committee.
Okay. I'm assuming there's do we need a second?
I second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to withdraw it. Now, I think there needs to be a separate motion if it's the pleasure to send CPO 2021-05 back to the Personnel Committee. And that's what you're moving, Councilman Barnes Caldwell?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair,
Councilman Brown?
could we move 2021-06 and 2021-07 as well? Because all three of these items have something to
Right.
do.
Human resources, I agree.
Okay, as long as Attorney Williams doesn't have any problem procedurally with that, then that's fine with me.
As long as there's no objection to combining them, it's permissible. I would also state that when you get to the second motion, that it not be moved back to the Personnel Committee, but that it be moved to an executive session.
Okay.
So let's restate the motion, Councilman Barnes Caldwell, to that
I would
effect.
like to withdraw my previous motion.
We've already done that one.
Okay.
Let's just make the motion to move it to the executive session.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you need a vote on the motion to withdraw.
Motion.
There's been
Oh,
a
okay,
second.
we moved into the other one. All right, so that's already happened. We've had the move in the second. I don't think we have any questions or discussion. Roll call.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes,
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 9-0.
A vote of 9-0, the stated amendment is withdrawn. Is there a motion, there's a motion to move CPO 2021-05, 06, and 07 to an executive session? That's correct, Councilman Barnes Caldwell?
Yes.
All right, and is there a second?
second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. It's moved and seconded by Councilman Brown. Any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, roll
I have
call,
a
Madam.
question.
Okay, Councilman Barnes Caldwell?
Will we include those other personnel issues with the other people into this meeting also?
Beyond these three?
Yes.
Well, we could. I mean, we just would do that in our announcement of the executive session and make sure they're invited, but, okay.
All right.
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer?
so if you're going to move to executive session, I do have concern with, we're saying that the privacy being protected, we're doing it via Zoom. I do have great concern with that. We're talking about privacy being protected. How do you protect the privacy if you're basically holding a Zoom conference? And no one knows if we're at home, we're gathering, who can view these issues that we're talking about in private? So that's my concern.
Okay, so Councilman Barnes Caldwell and Councilman Brown, are you okay with your motion adding that the executive session would be in person only?
We will, we can have it in person, and we actually can schedule it at 3:30, 4 o'clock when everyone is still at work, so that we won't be interrupting people's off time. You know how we have a problem with people not showing up and we can't force them if they're off work? If it's within their work schedule, they should be able to appear, correct?
I think that's correct, but if my job were on the line, I'd come at 2 in the morning if that's what it was called. But
Mr. President, they don't, Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
they're asking us to do something.
Right.
I mean, if they don't want to show up, don't ask us and keep going. Again, I
They
have.
won't even turn their cameras on via Zoom.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I could go ahead. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear
No,
you.
I says they won't even turn their cameras on while we're sitting here conducting this meeting now. So, you know what I'm saying?
Well, they lucky I'm not the president. They wouldn't be allowed to say anything. Absolutely nothing. I'm not.
Can't turn my camera on.
Well, if you explain that,
Not you.
yeah. Well, what happened, Mr. Williams said, I treat you special, Arlene, I'm gonna call you by your first name. You explained it. Anybody explained it that way, I don't have a problem. I recognize your voice. I think it's when we don't recognize the voice. What my question, I thought we controlled after we got these ridiculous things coming. I thought the host controlled who came on.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
That's correct. Through the webinar format, you have to be
Yes.
moved from an attendee to a panelist.
Right. Well, again, if we go into executive session, we have no attendees. None. It can only be who
Those
we
invited.
invite.
Right.
Yes,
No,
none.
that's not entirely true, Attorney Lay. The issue that you run into is you can't control the ordinance of the participant who's been allowed to come in. So, for example, you can have 3 people in your living room listening to the meeting. We have no control over that. That's the concern, and that has happened.
Let me tell you another thing that people don't understand. If you are truthful, if you're standing on truth, it don't matter what you say, really. Take my word on that. If you're on truth, you're not standing on truth, you have a problem. They can have 35 in their room if they want to. We have invited them. They have extended it, not the council. We haven't extended it. We can certainly not be responsible for people in the room. So all I'm suggesting is I'm going to have well, that's okay. I'm just one person, so the council can certainly meet without me. But again, the COVID is here, and I've taken all my shots, but I'm still very careful where I go and what room I'm in. But it would seem to me this person now is causing the harm to themselves, not to council. If we strict it to them and they put 15 people in the room, that's not our problem. They have created the problem. And as long as we're telling the truth or asking questions that is truthful, the president ruled me out of order. I thought we did that in a public meeting. And I thought, and I knew it was the truth because the person, or I think it was, they told me that. So again, we control it, and I'm not concerned about who they got in the room. I'm not concerned with if they're taping it, because again, they are doing it, and we're being truthful about. I would assume they're telling us certain questions. We're asking questions. I don't see how we get in trouble asking questions. So I would ask that it be, do it both ways, Zoom and restrict webinar, just restrict them and not worry about what they do. Because you don't know if they're recording it themselves, which we're not going to record in the executive session. They may be doing it. We don't know that. So they can create all kind of problems on that end, but as long as we're being truthful and trying to conduct the business, the purpose of the executive session is more or less not to embarrass the person. But as long as the truth is coming out, the person's been in jail, you can say they've been in jail. That's the truth. That may be a bad example, but that's all I was getting at. That's
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
one final thing. Whenever you schedule this executive session, I would ask that you reserve 30 minutes for only the members of the council and myself. I have a discussion that I do not want privy to the administration or the participants.
Absolutely agree with that. The
Mr.
attorney
Chair.
now speaking to us.
All right,
Miss-
Councilman Williams.
Again, along with Attorney Williams, whenever you do schedule this executive session, I'm pleading with you not to make it at least you do 4 o'clock, because a lot of things that are scheduled during midday, I have to work and I can't make it. I like to make these things.
I totally agree with you, and we do want to be sensitive to that. Many folks on the council have full-time jobs, and so I tend to have flexibility, but I know how it is. You're running all over the place, working, and so forth. So I agree. I think that our meetings should be really after 5 o'clock.
Yes.
To give people time to get here and so forth, and to in agreement with Councilman Lay. If you want, you're asking us to grant you a waiver. You come when it's scheduled. And if you're not there, then it doesn't happen. It's really that simple. So I mean, I think that's not an unfair thing for us to ask. So in any event, the executive session will be properly scheduled. I guess right now the motion is that it will be via in person only because of the privacy concerns related to this. And I guess for those who don't agree with that, they can simply vote against it. But we do need to keep moving forward this evening.
President,
Councilman Brewer?
last question. So we're saying we're going to take 05, 06, and 07 and combine them all together and move into the, so there's a problem with all three. And I just want to be clear on is there a problem with all three while we're moving? Because
The issue I have, Mr. Councilman Brewer, yes, it would
Okay.
involve all three.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
Mr.
Okay.
President,
Attorney Poole.
does this and I guess this question's for Attorney Williams, would this issue be pertinent to 2021-17 and 2021-18, which are the EMTs that we are seeking to have also waivers issued for, and we had requested in the Personnel Committee yesterday for that to be heard on all three readings, given our dire need for EMTs out on the streets of Gary as of right now. I think we're down to 6 or 7.
Yes, the answer is yes. It would pertain to that as well.
So, and I think we're back to commingling everything here again. Because I think it's all works together, because we do have some serious issues with 17 and 18 where we do need these personnel to be hired, because there are other issues that I don't want to go into where we're commingling the conversation, but there's separate issues with these here. But
the issue,
I think we have
again,
a
attorney,
problem now here with these, if we're doing it this way.
Well, I think if we don't think so, I guess what I would just say is that 5, 6, and 7, one question we have is about the time, right? And I think that applies to all of them. Should it be indefinite? Should it be 6 months? Should it be a year? And that's a conversation, depending on each person's context or situation, that would be best assessed in an executive session. I don't think there's anything wrong with discussing all three of those as we think about what would be the appropriate time waiver to give. I do think, just putting my little bit of a legal hat on, we do have to be careful about differential times. I mean, in most cities that have residency ordinances, it is in the ordinance how much time you get. And that's just that, whether it's 6 months or a year. I think you may run into equal protection issues.
Mr. Chair,
Attorney
I
Williams?
hate to interrupt you, but this very conversation is my concern. I would ask that we
understand.
stop conversation
I
and move it
understand.
all into executive committee, including the ones that Attorney Poole just referenced.
I agree. I agree.
But
So
Mr. President, I
let's,
do disagree with that. I don't guess this confidence. They indicated they have, because of people retiring and leaving for other jobs, we only have 6 people on the street in terms of the EMS. As I understand, it's extremely difficult. They advertise, not everything that I think Councilwoman Ty indicated. You know, it was other things such as a Crusader, Facebook, and now they're saying they're going to do all of that. As I understand, Chief O'Donnell, here I think it's more or less an emergency. I think it's different circumstances. Now,
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I thought you were done, Attorney Lay. I'm sorry. But Mr. Chair, again, I would ask Attorney Lay to defer to me. I assure you that what I want to discuss concerns those issues as well. And if the body takes actions on those issues, you'll further complicate my concern.
Yeah, but this is in the committee. It's going to a committee.
so I think we're talking about 5, 6, and 7 right now. Let's deal with 17 and 18 later. 5, 6, and 7 are going to go to an executive session.
Right.
Now, we've already had a committee hearing on it, so it will simply just reappear on third and final, ideally at our next council meeting. By then, the executive session would have happened, and then we will be able to take a vote on it, given the information that we gather from that executive session. But I think we do need to move forward because we have a long way to go. I respect Attorney Williams' position about the legal matters, even in the discussion that we're having, which could be used against us, I suppose. So could we just take the vote on this? Okay.
Are we going to include 17 and 18 for the executive session?
No, we need to first get those,
Into a committee?
right. Well, they're into a committee.
They're in
It's just that
personnel.
we haven't agreed to. Yeah, so Attorney Williams, what is your opinion?
I'm
on
asking that there not be any distinction between any of them.
that? Okay, so
Whether
do
you
you
take the
think we
vote
should-
now or later, that's
Okay.
fine.
So do you think it's okay if we just add it now, 17 and 18?
As long as there's not an objection from a council member.
Okay, I certainly hope not. But if there is, if there is.
No, I
is there
will
an
not
objection?
object. I will not object. So let's go.
All right, so the motion, just to be clear, and I want to make sure that the movement is okay, that CPO 2021-050607, 17 and 18 will be moved to executive session to be properly scheduled and posted, and it will be in person only per the original motion. Who seconded that motion?
Second, I second it.
And Brown
Okay,
second.
all right, so Brown, Williams, and Brown, I believe, seconded that motion as I stated it. I don't think we have need for any other questions or discussion.
My vote will go no because of the in-person now. I'm going to vote no based on that.
Okay, understood. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
No.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
No.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
No.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 6 yes, 3 no's.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 6 votes in the affirmative, CPO 2021-050607, 17 and 18 are moved to executive session in person to be scheduled and posted according to the law. Now we're at CPO 2021-08.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Williams.
can we, let's not forget an appropriate time?
Not
5
right
o'clock would be
now.
great.
Yes, I'll support that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CPO 2021-08, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code. Other code of ordinances of the city of Gary, Indiana. Petitioners Laurel Pfefferman, 300 West Ridge Road, Gary, Indiana. Property at 401 West Ridge Road, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2021-08.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We will now have the overview. Mr. Berea.
Good evening. I just shared my screen, so I hope you can see it.
Yep.
The owner petitioner is Cornerstone Auto Group. Laurel Pfefferman is the owner of the property. The affected real estate is 401 West Ridge Road. The petitioner is requesting a special use permit to operate automotive dependent and related retail and service establishment, given that this zoning is B21. The petitioner had submitted all proper neighbor notifications. There was no neighbor feedback submitted to the zoning department. The staff's recommendation is in general in favor of initiatives for new businesses. And at the BZA meeting, the BZA voted to approve the petition with a favorable recommendation with the condition that the petitioner provide proof of ownership, which he did, and I submitted to legal counsel earlier today. That concludes the staff overview portion, and I will accept any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berea. Any questions or discussion for Mr. Berea? Okay. Seeing and hearing none. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes. Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 9-0.
With a vote of 9-0, CPO 2021-08 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2021-09, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Jose Hernandez Martinez, 4957 through 59 Broadway, Gary, Indiana. Property at 4957 through 59 Broadway, Gary, Indiana.
This time we will have the overview, Mr. Berea. I'm sorry, Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve CPO 2021-09 on third and final at this time.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer and seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Now we'll have the overview, Mr. Berea.
The owner petitioner is Jose Hernandez Martinez. The owner of the property is Nick Petrosky. The effective real estate is 4957 Broadway. The petitioner is requesting a special use permit to operate automotive dependent and related retail service establishment. The zoning of the property is B31, which permits this use as a special use. The petitioner submitted proper notice by the required deadlines. The zoning department received 2 letters back, both of them stating concerns on the effect of the previous/current owner, operator of that business upon their property. Staff in general are in favor of initiatives for new businesses. And at the meeting, the BZA voted to approve the petition with the condition of an evaluation after 1 year to make sure that the issues that were identified by neighbors do not continue with the new business owner. That concludes the staff overview, and I will take any questions at the time.
Thank you, Mr. Berea. Are there any questions? This is Councilman Williams' district. Did you have any comments or questions or concerns on this?
My only concern, I know the residents have sent me some emails concerning the clutter with this particular parcel. And they also expressed their concerns for some environmental concerns of oil being spilled towards their property. That's the only thing I want to talk about. Is the party on the, my screen's been minimized. I don't know who's on here now.
He's here.
Can we go back to the full screen, please? Uh-oh.
Okay.
Yes.
Again, my did you hear my concerns? Who am I speaking?
Yes, Nick Petrosky is online, if he can unmute himself.
I don't even see Nick.
Yes, I'm here.
You there? Okay, yes. Nick, did you hear what I just said as far as my concerns as well as the residents in the area?
I did. I heard your concerns, and I explained before that the reason we got rid of the tenant was because of that. That tenant is moving across the street. So code enforcement will have to deal with him at the other property, but we got a new tenant here.
As a new tenant, the concern is still there. Are we going to work with a year on this deal?
Well, Councilman Williams, what Mr. Petrosky just outlined was the previous tenant that you had the problems with is now a new tenant across the street. So the problem left that property and moved across the street, and there's a new tenant moving to this property here.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons why that tenant is no longer there. So the problem is now across the street. It's not here now.
Okay.
Right.
Mr. President, I know
Councilman
both
Brown.
of those residents who wrote those letters who are opposed to this. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to be opposed to it.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Atkins.
during the committee meeting, I did request or ask if we can get a new notarized application from the property owner. So, Mr. Berea, did you receive that?
I did, and I sent it on to legal counsel just this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or discussions for Mr. Berea or the petitioner? The petitioner, would you like to have any, I guess, feedback or thoughts, what you heard?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions or concerns, I will just, Councilman Williams, if you had any other things you wanted to say before we took
No.
the vote?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other questions or discussion, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yeah.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
No.
Councilwoman Brown,
She said no.
okay. Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8 yes, 1 no.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 8 votes in the affirmative, the CPO 2021-09 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2021-10, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Kenesha Clark, 6938 Ironwood Avenue, Gary, Indiana. Property at 6938 Ironwood Avenue, Gary, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer.
make a motion to move CPO 2021-10 on third and final.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Brown and Councilman Lay. We'll have the overview at this time, Mr. Berea.
The application for the special use permit was submitted to the zoning department by owner and petitioner Kenesha Wiggins Clark for the affected real estate 6938 Ironwood Avenue. The property is zoned R1 and it permits the non-medical, it permits care homes as a special use. And the petitioner is requesting a special use permit to establish a non-medical residential care home for seniors and or military veterans. The petitioner submitted the proper notifications on time. And we received both letters and neighbor feedback that in written form to the zoning department. Given the petition was originally heard on January 11th, and given the number of feedback that we received in the 2 days leading up to the hearing, the petition was deferred to the February meeting to assess the concerns that were raised by the neighbors. The concerns that were raised by the neighbors were the potential effect on property values, the question on the infrastructure, mainly the septic tank system, and potential impact on traffic. By the February 8th meeting, the petitioner had provided a response to all 3 of those criteria. And in the February BZA meeting, neighbors also expressed their concerns about, once again, the potential effect of property values and the potential effect of the character of the neighborhood. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all 7 special use criteria. The petitioner provided the following responses to all as identified by Municipal Code Section 123-59, addressing all of the points mentioned. And the BZA made a motion to forward the petition to the Common Council without a recommendation in accordance with Indiana State Code 36-7-4-19.6 C3, and the motion carried 4-0. That concludes the staff overview portion. I will take questions at this time.
Any questions or discussion for Mr. Berea? I think the petitioner is also on.
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Brown?
Thank you. I thought we were going to, this was going back. So you guys want to vote on this tonight? Because we got some input from her as well as the residents. And I thought there was some other concerns, but if not, I will say this: if we're going to vote, that I think what she's doing is great. I thought she was very compassionate, but I also had to listen to the residents and their concerns. And in this case, and I did speak to another one of my fellow council persons, I wish there was another location this person could do this in, because toward the end of the testimonies, there was a very compassionate testimony as well from one of the residents, and it's really stuck with me. And so I cannot support this ordinance. I can't.
Well, thank you, Councilman Brown, and I will say that I am of the same opinion. First, I really believe, I know the BZA has a statutory right to make no recommendation. I really think they should do their job, and they have the job to, and the zoning administrator and our Department of Zoning to state a position, to go through the issues. I will say this, again, I knew the petitioner's mom. I'm very familiar with the area, both professionally and as a resident. And as I said in the committee meeting, there's no way, short 15 months here, this many letters through the formal process that the city has established in opposition. I have a stack of them, right? So there's no way that I'm going to ignore the residents who actually live next door, across the street, down the block. I live in Miller, but I don't live in that particular area of Miller. So how dare I tell them what should or should not be within their particular area of the neighborhood when they have spoken so loudly and so clearly, and the BZA itself was unable to reach an affirmative decision either way. And so while I respect the passion of the petitioner, I cannot vote in favor of it and ignore the concerns of the residents who overwhelmingly oppose it. And I even got more letters after the committee meeting doubling down on the opposition. I do think there are some very legitimate concerns. I know of no market study that the BZA did approving either way, but I do know that a single family home area should be just that. If it's strong, if it's stable, if it's occupied, we should try to build up those communities wherever they exist in the city. Whether that's Tolleson, whether that's Horace Mann, whether that's Morningside, whether that's West Glen Park, whether that's Miller, wherever we have strong neighborhoods, we should keep them as single-family residential communities. That's one of the reasons we're having a hard time keeping middle-class folks in this city. And while we know everybody's important and everybody's valuable, we have to have a strong middle class to turn this city around. And we have to have strong communities to do it. And so I think there are some very valid considerations from folks who bought homes, who invested in homes, who expanded homes, thinking that they were going to live in a single family subdivision. And we don't want to, thirdly, open the floodgates, because what do you do when the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth person says, I too want to open up a similar facility? There would be no legal rationale, I think, to start saying no within a particular context. I know that I'm opening up a can of worms by saying this, but I'm going to borrow, and I'm sure he's going to correct me, a quote from my colleague, Councilman Lay. When it comes to the context of this particular neighborhood, I think we have to consider the interests of the many over that of the few and most certainly that of the one. This is one house, one resident who wants to do something, but we have 20 plus who live in the immediate area who don't want their neighborhood changed in that way. So I must be responsive to them who actually will live in that area, and I think there are legitimate concerns. So I will be voting no and encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you. Other members?
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay.
I probably will have to speak twice. When you say, as I understand now, maybe I've misunderstood something. She has approximately 100 people in support, I believe, and I would appreciate if Mr. Brewer would correct me on this, where we had letters. So the support letters seem to be greater than those that are against. And as an example, I see a former mayor on, Scott King. His home, let me help you, is 2/10 of a mile away, 1,056 feet. He's complaining. I said earlier he's at the end, but he's also down the street from it. He probably couldn't hear a gunshot from where he is. He would have no idea unless he specifically, if he drove down that street, what effect it would have on the neighborhood. Councilman Brewer and I went there Saturday. We went through the home. I believe Councilman Brewer will back me on this. This place is absolutely gorgeous. With all of these things that have been raised, I don't see how they occur with people going to die, people, ambulances, traffic. Miss Clark or Mrs. Clark, I do know she's married. You can enter her property, let's say if something would occur, through the garage. She has sufficient parking out front. The upkeep of the house is amazing. I know you shouldn't reduce it to personal, but I wish I could keep mine that nice. I probably would spend more time at home. So again, the neighbors are complaining. I'm a veteran, so I'm somewhat already prejudiced toward it. What we're going to do now is that we're going to restrict this type of home in the entire community. She gets people recommending people from her. We took, I shouldn't say we, Mr. Brewer must have took a dozen pictures or more. We went through the house point by point by point. As we approached the house, it was in the house. It didn't change the character of the neighborhood. They're complaining about the septic tank. Well, that problem was cured. I mean, the maximum number of people she can have is 3. They said she's going to move out. She says she's not. I have no reason to think that she's not telling the truth in that area. It certainly, it's not a hospice. I mean, unfortunately, I think that's what occurred with her mother, but she could just simply get senior citizens to come there. It would be a very nice place to certainly spend some of your final hours in, other than in a nursing home. Unfortunately, many people have to go to nursing homes. Someone said they will die there. Well, you're going to die in your own home if you stay there, unless you don't move to another home. Again, I know a couple of people that complain, but they're a great distance from the property itself. And I'm sure Councilman Brewer can add to it. I mean, have I misstated anything about what this property looked like, Mr. Brewer, and the inside?
Well, let me just interject. You have not misstated anything about the property. It definitely is a gorgeous residence. I was well taken back by it. I didn't believe it was going to be as nice as I saw it. I had no doubt that it would be nice, but it was very nice. It almost made me think about my grandfather, needing service of that nature, and having the reserve and not wanting to consider a nursing home. And you have something of this magnitude in the city. It was something that I basically would say I'm proud to say that we have something of this magnitude trying to come here. But I addressed some of the issues that some of the people here, as far as water, the building permit that was there, what she's going to add on to the home. That's not what happened. There was a pad that was outside the backyard that was done many years ago, probably when she was younger, when her father was living, where it used to be I believe, an old garage there, and now it's tore down. It's just a pad there on the back. But there is no additional building that's going on. All this will take place inside the home. The max number that she can actually house there is not so much what's on this petition here, 3 to 5, in which I would like to add to amend that also. It is 3. She cannot go over 3. There's only room enough to accommodate 3 people in this home. I toured the bedrooms. There's 3 bedrooms in the home. And I also toured her bedroom also, where she definitely resides there. It toured all the rooms in there. And it's just immaculate, from the kitchen area, the sitting area, to the area where they can sit outside and, as she said, watch the deers go past. It's a beautiful layout. Even to it in the basement, where she had the water issues and where she has the proper drain tile, where if any water does try and seep in, it runs to the sub pump that's in the basement. All those problems have been corrected. There is a flooding problem that happens on the street, but it has nothing to do with the petitioner. That's an issue with the city and Gary Sanitary District that needs to address that issue there. But as Councilman Lay talked about the parking, there's at least between 5 to 6 cars that can park out front, and it's nothing new that she has added there, but this adequate parking is in the front. There's a full 2-car driveway on the side that can hold at least 4 cars inside the driveway without the ones you use in the garage itself. So the contact of the ongoing traffic or anything of that nature is definitely well off, where it would not interfere with traffic. It's no different from you would drive by, and basically we did do a drive-by around the neighborhood a little bit. You can't tell what's going on in anyone's home. You wouldn't be able to tell what she was operating in this facility in her home here, because there will be no signage outside saying that this is for veterans or anything of that nature there. The appearance of the home would not change at all. So as you drive past, you would not know what's going on in this home. There's, as was talked about in the overview, there is no major medical equipment that's been transported back and forward out of this home here. It's basically a residence, long-term care residence. As Councilman Lay said, that's what all of our homes are for, is long-term care, unless we plan on moving out before we leave this place. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I just want to quickly respond, if I may, that of course you can't determine the effect of a use that does not currently exist. So obviously there's no one there in hospice care now, and certainly not 3 people. It's not operating as a business yet. So I don't know how you forecast in the future based on a current visit. Secondly, all the letters that I got were within the statutory area that people were sent the letters, right? So obviously they live a lot closer than I do. And I would dare say, based on our laws, that I probably live the closest to them in terms of any member on this council. So the folks who spoke certainly live closer than any of us do. I will just lastly say that there is a difference between, basically an elderly person or anybody dying at their home, because we all will die. And certainly I know that many public health experts are encouraging people to stay home for their final days, wherever they reside, and have their hospice or senior care there. I think that's very different than it being a business where there are regularly the exchange of people in and out who will take advantage of the use of this facility should this council allow it. Again, I just reiterate that I'm against it, because I am responsive to the concerns of the residents who actually live there. I have never in my time seen this much of a response or input, again, following our proper procedures. And I want the residents to know that whatever this council does, that I'm listening to you. And I'm hearing from you about what you want in your neighborhood and what you don't want in your neighborhood. And, that's where I stand. I've made my stance very clearly on it. I think that if it does pass, you should use whatever legal remedies that are available to stop the use, if that's your pleasure. I hope that my colleagues will be responsive to what you have said, and to the issues that have been raised, but I'm again only one vote, and I want you to know that I'm only one vote in making this determination.
Mr. President, I would be prepared to assist legally in ensuring that it goes through. I didn't know that was our role.
Yeah.
Again, we all can't live next to the houses in this community. I'm going to make a wild guess that you've never been inside the house. So which I have. I took the time along with Mr. Brewer. We went out and we looked at it out of concern. We're not against any population, but certainly, and it's not unique. The BZA failed to perform its job. And for someone to explain the ordinance to me well, or the law, that they don't have to perform their job, they send it to us without making a decision. We did the most responsible thing. I'm sure I see Mrs. Clark is on, so at some point, she indicated, Mr. Brewer, didn't she indicate she had many, many more letters? And I thought the area that was concerned was 400 feet from the residence. Is that correct? Do I have that wrong? That you function within 400 feet of the residence, or wherever we want to make the change, Mr. Berea? Is that where the letters go, 400 feet?
The letters were sent in 100 feet of the property boundary, which included 12 households.
Okay. Again, I believe didn't the former mayor Scott King, I see he's on, didn't he send a letter?
Yes, someone sent out copies of the letter for other neighbors to sign and send to the zoning department, beyond which we sent out.
Yeah, he's 1,056 feet from the facility. So again, I'm probably several miles away, 7 miles, but we're both outside of the zone or the area. In other words, again, and I'm not trying to, in the words of Attorney Williams, I'm not trying to pick on him, but you could do anything at this address, and he would be hard pressed to know what's going on. There's another very close friend of mine who I believe, and I'm not going to bring her name up, her letter is there. She's farther away from it than I would suspect. She's a quarter of a mile away. So again, although he has a lot of letters, they're from all over the place. And Mr. Brewer, were we not told that that her letters, is about 100 of them, people that were in favor of what she's doing?
Yeah, it was told that, excuse me, there is 100 letters that she has also.
Yeah, I don't know if they were submitted to the BZA or not, but it appears that there are many more people in favor of it. Now, she did indicate maybe the immediate neighbor is not for it, but they started talking about, as Councilman Brewer has already said, I don't want to repeat, but they're talking about she's going to build this, or this is improper and this is improper. And she, even down to, I've seen a letter says she's going to move if she says she's not. One of the things that Councilman Brewer and I did discuss, that what we would say, let it operate for a year. And he brought it up, and I said, well, as long as code enforcement of the executive branch would go back and review what's going on, and we now see what the problem is. If there is a problem, if there is no problem, a baby cries when you try to change the child. No one likes change. This is change here, that's all. So yes, they're objecting to change. My vote will be absolutely in the affirmative. I cannot think of any rational reason to do it. I do understand people have objected to it, but again, it gets back to what Mr. Godwin said. I believe in the many. If we restrict it here in this household, it's impossible for me to believe another household anywhere in this community will reach that level. I'm serious. She was a very sincere young lady, and certainly based upon my age, I can call her young. I don't know her age. But again, it was very enjoyable walking through the property. So as you restrict this one, I would assume it can't go anywhere else. Am I correct, Mr. Brewer? Do you see it being any better anywhere, even next door to you? It would be very difficult for someone to compete with what she's doing.
I agree, and I will make a amendment to this also, put that barriers in place, that it will come back for 1 year, and also restrict the numbers down from 5 to 3. So if there is any official concerns about traffic, which the House can only accommodate 3 anyway, but the word in fact, the paperwork does say 3, being 5. So I will make sure that it does say 3, because it does spell that out.
And she raised another interesting point too, that was unclear to me because I've not looked at the legend, that she didn't have to come to the council.